Hello, and welcome to the 2021 Business and Economic Debate between the candidates for the Federal Electoral District of Peterborough-Kawartha. I am Joe Grant, Chair of the Greater Peterborough Chamber of Commerce, and it's a pleasure and an honor to be here today to moderate today's debate. Before beginning, I would like to respectfully acknowledge that we gather and reside on Mississauga, Anishinaabe traditional land, and we offer our deep gratitude to the First Nations for their care for and teachings about our earth and our relations. May we honor those teachings. The following organizations have partnered to bring you today's debate: Peterborough Downtown Business Improvement Area, Peterborough and District Construction Association, Peterborough and Kawarthas Association of Realtors, Peterborough and Kawarthas Home Builders Association, Kawartha Chamber of Commerce and Tourism, and of course, the Greater Peterborough Chamber of Commerce. Our debaters today: from the Green Party, Shante White; from the New Democratic Party of Canada, Joy LaChica; from the Liberal Party of Canada, Miriam Monsef; from the Conservative Party of Canada, Michelle Ferrari. The focus of today's debate will be on economic and business issues. The format is simple. Each candidate will have an opportunity to give a 2-minute opening. This will be followed by as many rounds of questions as we can fit in the next approximately 80 minutes. The questions will be followed by brief closing remarks, about 1 minute each. Most of today's questions have been submitted by the membership of our partner organizations. I will ask a question, and each candidate will have 1 minute to respond. We ask our candidates to please keep their answers to the 1-minute time limit, but if they are in mid-sentence, they may finish their thought, but please do not begin a new point or thought. If a candidate's response references another candidate or the party platform or record of another party, then that candidate will have 30 seconds to make a rebuttal. Additional rebuttals may be granted at my discretion. We look forward to getting to know our candidates over the next hour and a half, and we have a lot of ground to cover, so let's get at it. We will now go into the opening remarks. The order has been chosen by lot, and Shante from the Green Party will things off. Shante.
Mr. Chairman, thank you so much for inviting me here to speak with you all. I know what you're thinking. When you look at me, you think she's smart, attractive, well-meaning, but she's running for the Green Party. You probably think economy and ecology rhyme, but don't mix. She's a dead man walking in this election. She'll never win. So why am I running? I'm running because I'm hopeful. I'm hopeful that voters will have witnessed what has gone on this past summer and realize that something has to change. The Liberals will tell you they've invested billions in climate change, but then they bought a pipeline delivering fuel to be burned and cause greenhouse gas emissions. Voters are not stupid. They understand that buying a pipeline is like putting out a fire with gasoline. The Conservatives, they don't even have a plan. Their platform says they'll move in the direction of the Paris targets. Well, every time I walk down the street and take a step eastward, I'm moving closer to Paris, France. But unless I buy a ticket, I'm not moving to Paris. Voters, again, aren't stupid. In the next few days, the Liberal leader will start to scare you into thinking that unless you vote Liberal, you're going to have a mean-spirited Conservative in charge who will imitate Stephen Harper and Mike Harris. They'll say, vote strategic, vote Liberal. Conservatives will say, watch out, the Liberals are going to raise your taxes and take away your gun rights and rack up another $1 trillion in debt. This is all great rhetoric if you want to motivate people with fear. Well, I'm asking you today to vote with your hopes and not your fears. As a Green Party candidate, I support our plan to set real emissions targets. I'm hopeful we can create 1 million jobs by retrofitting every single building in Canada to be carbon neutral. I'm hopeful that a handful of Greens elected to Parliament can push through a guaranteed livable income so we can finally solve the seemingly intractable poverty we see on the streets of Peterborough. I'm hopeful that a handful of Green MPs will push the government, Conservative or Liberal, to finally fix the water on First Nation reserves. Enough excuses, enough delays.
Thank you, Shante. Joy.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you to the organizers of this important event on economics and the economy. It brings me great pleasure to be here as the federal NDP candidate for Peterborough-Kawartha, and it's also just a delight to share this platform with 4 well, altogether we're 4 women candidates, which I believe is a first. So best of luck to those who are with me. And I look forward to sharing what I believe is a platform for the economy that is smart, that is compassionate, that is driven by a desire to fight for people in a time that we've never experienced in our lifetimes or even in this century. We're in different times, and I come to you as someone who has been an advocate for children, for families, for community, for my lifetime as a teacher, as an educator. And in more recent years, I have been a labor leader and an advocate fighting for cuts to education, fighting for more funding so that the cuts would not impact us. And we entered a pandemic in a time of cuts, and we're looking at an economy that we need to sustain and rebuild and rise through this pandemic together. In every corner of this country, families are worried about jobs, the health of our loved ones, the climate crisis, and the public services that everyone counts on. And we know that the economy includes all of those things, and it's knit together with these important integrated aspects. We know also that we've had Liberal and Conservative governments in previous years, and we know that it is time to make some different choices based on what lies before us. We need the courage to act together, and that's what New Democrats offer to Canadians.
Thank you, Joy. Miriam.
Thank you so much. Hello, everybody. Bonjour, Anin, Salam Alaikum. I'm on Mississauga and Anishinaabe territory, and I'm grateful to all the partners who've created this space for us to have this important conversation during an important election. I'm running to be your Member of Parliament again. The Liberal Party of Canada is the only party this election with a fully costed plan to fight climate change and create green jobs, to make life more affordable and support the most vulnerable, and to finish the fight against the pandemic. Business leaders in our community have asked for predictability, and the best way to achieve that is to finish the fight against the pandemic. Business leaders have asked for a skilled workforce. The Liberal Party of Canada is offering $10 a day childcare, which is going to get 250,000 women back into the workforce so that they can pursue their dreams and share their talent with businesses and employers in our communities. Together, since I've been your Member of Parliament, we've helped create and protect over 3,000 jobs here in Peterborough-Kawartha. And I'm running because I'm not done giving back. On September 20th, or at advanced polls, I humbly ask for your vote. Thank you.
Michelle.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Chair. Thank you to the Chamber of Commerce and all of the people who have made this possible today. Very happy to be here. And obviously, as an entrepreneur, this means a lot to me. As a small business owner that makes up the backbone of our economy, this is a very important debate that we need to talk about. We are in the midst of recovery, and that's exactly what we need to do. We need to have a plan to recover. You know, there's a saying, you can't build a reputation on what you intend to do. It's on what you do. And that's what I've done for the last 6 years as a small business owner. I created a business in social media marketing, in a business traditionally that needs a bailout. And I relied on my local economy, my local businesses to do this. And what I want to do on a federal and local level is help our businesses, connect with small business owners that make up our economy, connect with the manufacturers, and continue to support them, build for them, and open up access to capital so they can get done what they need to get done. We have a lot of work to do, and if we don't take care of our small businesses, we can't move forward. And that's why I'm here today, and I hope to bring your voice to Ottawa. Thank you.
Thank you, Michelle. I should note that the partners have decided to follow the Leaders Debate Commission in making the invitations for today's debate. Paul Lawton from the People's Party of Canada will have some remarks posted on the Chamber YouTube channel for those who wish to view them. Robert Bowers also was invited. The other candidate, independent candidate, also will have some remarks on YouTube if he wishes. We'll get into the first round of questions now. The first one is going to be just a general question to get things started. Shantae, this is the first question will be to you, and then we will move down the same order that we had the opening remarks. The second question will start with Joy, and so on and so forth. Okay? And we'll rotate that way. The question is, the vast majority of members of the organizations that partnered to bring today's debate are small business owners, generally considered a business with 100 or less employees. Why should business owners support you and your party? Shantae.
Thank you so much for that question. It's important that we support small businesses, and the Green Party is a party that does that. We are a small grassroots party, so that's why we put a lot of the focus on small business owners, because they're the ones who are most vulnerable, especially during a pandemic such as now. We believe that it's important to invest in them and protect them and ensure that, moving forward, they have the resources they need to accelerate in their avenue.
Thank you. Joy?
Thank you. Certainly, small and medium business enterprises have been the most deeply impacted in this pandemic, and it's heartbreaking to see businesses shuttered and restaurants closed, and certainly this is a huge priority in terms of rebuilding the economy and having a healthy opening. Certainly, the NDP wants to bring a focus on a small and medium business in terms of high return businesses like childcare, and we had such a lively debate and discussion on that yesterday. Things like retrofitting homes. Our plan, our Green New Deal, would facilitate job creation and jumpstart the economy in new ways through the retrofitting plan we have. Arts and culture small businesses and enterprises have been impacted, and we want to support them as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Joy. Miriam?
Thank you. Without a doubt, it has been a difficult time for everybody in our community. Small businesses and employers have had to pivot and repivot and shut down and lock down. And throughout it all, as your member of parliament, I've been there for you, and our government has been there for you. Whether it was with the wage subsidy, with the loans, with investments in vaccines, we had your back. Together, even before the pandemic, we helped create and protect more than 3,000 jobs here in Peterborough-Kawartha. In those sectors hardest hit, the Liberal Party of Canada is the only one this election offering a plan to move forward, whether in tourism, whether hospitality, whether small business of all stripes, whether it's the women who've had to stay home to look after their loved ones. The Liberal Party of Canada has a plan to move you forward, and that's why we're asking for your vote.
Thank you. Michelle?
Thank you. Yeah, obviously, as a small business owner, I was directly impacted deeply by the pandemic, and I think there's it was good to have support. Any good government would step up and do that. But I think when we look at deficit spending, we need to look at three things, right? It needs to be timely, it needs to be targeted, and it needs to be temporary. And if we don't have a transition program in place to get people back to work, right now this is the number one thing I'm hearing from small businesses, they can't get people to come work. So what are we going to do about that? Well, we have a plan. We're going to subsidize employers up to 50% to offset those costs to get people back to work. CERB was great, but how do we help these people now get back into the workforce? Well, we have to have a subsidization program for the employers as well, because quite frankly, they're not going to make up that lost revenue, so how can we help support them? So we need to get people back working. It's economics 101, and we need to have a transition program in place, and we have that right now, and it's a full recovery plan to get small businesses back on their feet.
May I respond?
Thank you, Michelle. Miriam, 30 seconds.
We're offering incentives to employer to hire folks who are looking for work. I don't see how the Conservative Party of Canada is going to grow the economy without a clear vaccine mandate and by ripping up $10 a day childcare, which is going to get 250,000 women back to work.
Thank you, Miriam. Michelle, would you like to respond?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm not sure what we're talking about the vaccine for right now. We're talking about transitioning from your CERB. So right now people are making more while they're not working, so we need to have a program in place to get them back to work. So we're going to support the employers to do that. We're not ripping up anything. You haven't implemented $10 daycare.
We have. 8 provinces and territories have signed on, and we can't get the economy back on track unless we finish the fight against the pandemic, which is why I bring up a strong vaccine mandate.
May I respond?
Joy.
The Conservatives profess to care a lot about the economy and recovery, but they voted against something like pharmacare. National pharmacare would be something that would save businesses $600 per employee annually. And the Conservatives and the Liberals voted against that. We need to be thinking of ways of getting people forward and healthy again.
Okay, I'm just going to stop it there. We're going to get to all of these issues, I'm sure, and we'll have much more time to go back and forth as well. For our next question, Joy, you're the first. Speaking of COVID, and this is going to be a big topic, as you may well have guessed, the federal wage and rent subsidy programs, the Canada Emergency Wage Subsidy and the Canada Emergency Rent Subsidy, have been a lifeline for many businesses. How long should these programs continue, and what is the process for ending or replacing them?
Thanks for that. Well, first of all, the inadequate 10% wage subsidy was not enough, and the NDP pushed for a 75% wage subsidy, and that is at least supportive, and we need to move forward with continuing to offer these things, including the $2,000 a month CERB. We need to extend support for workers in small and medium-sized businesses. This fourth wave and the numbers and the data show that we will need to. So we need to think forward, and we need to hold people up and provide the support they need in a fourth wave.
Thank you. Miriam.
Could you repeat the question, please?
Certainly. The federal wage and rent subsidy programs, the Canada Emergency Wage Subsidy and the Canada Emergency Rent Subsidy, have been a lifeline for many businesses. How long should these programs continue, and what is the process for ending or replacing them?
I appreciate the recognition that the supports we put in place during the pandemic, rapid and responsive, have met the needs of business communities and employers across the country, including here in Peterborough-Kawartha. We've committed to continuing them until next spring, and why there's such a strong push to finish the fight against the pandemic, to get people vaccinated, to support public health, to get $10 a day childcare so that women can go back to work, is so that we can transition out of these supports and ensure that our economy starts to soar.
Thank you. Michelle?
Yeah, so we actually have a Main Street business loan, which I think is fantastic as well. So we will be up to $200,000. So this is really going to help a lot of folks as well get back on their feet. We also have a 25% tax credit for any infrastructure developments as well. But back to what I had originally said too, that transition program to help employers, so to get 1 million new jobs back on track within the year, that 25% subsidy, up to 50% subsidy, is going to help employers get people back to work. And it's not just about quantity, it's about quality as well. So we'll be also investing in skilled trades as well.
May I respond to that?
We'll go through all of the candidates first.
Certainly.
And then I'll make a note to come back to you, Joy. Thank you.
Thank you.
Shantae.
Thank you. You mentioned how COVID-19 has really impacted the economy and the subsidies that are being given. I agree, poverty is very expensive. And one of the ways that the Green Party would help people suffering from this is through a guaranteed livable income. A GLI would provide every Canadian with a basic revenue source, ensuring that the people can cover basic expenses such as food and accommodation. This is something that would benefit a lot of people. I know even myself would benefit from a service like this, and I think it's important that we put the focus back on the people and strengthen them and build them up.
Thank you. Joy.
Candidate Ferrari had mentioned about the labor force and just concerns about getting people back into the labor force. We have 10 times more women outside of the labor force today than at the start of the pandemic. And it's just as concerning that there is not a conservative commitment to the affordable childcare that we feel is so essential. And also, we feel that small and medium-sized businesses would benefit from universal pharmacare and dental care, and that is not supported by the Conservative government. We are in a pandemic, and we need to rise from it in a healthy way for families and communities.
Thank you, Joy. Miriam, you wanted to, 30 seconds?
We're already on track to achieving the 1 million jobs we committed to helping to create at the beginning of the year. We've recovered 92% of the jobs lost during the pandemic. Compare that to 75% in the US. We have a plan for a skilled workforce, and $10 a day childcare is key to saving parents in our area up to $12,000 a year and helping women and parents get back into the workforce and fill the current vacancies.
Thank you, Miriam. Michelle, 30 seconds.
If you've secured all these jobs, why are so many people not working? And secondly, in speaking with Quebec and people who are doing daycare, yes, $10 daycare really helps low-income families. However, it's not increasing the wages for these people who are so underfunded. These are the most important people, and we need to get their wages up, and $10 a day daycare is not going to do that.
Thank you, Michelle. Miriam, final 30 seconds.
Actually, part of our childcare plan is to increase wages for early learning and childcare workers, and that is key to building a system. And yes, it will help the most vulnerable and hardest hit by COVID, like single moms, which is why it's so hard to believe that the Conservative Party of Canada and our local Conservative candidate stands by ripping up this agreement, these agreements, and taking $10 a day childcare away from moms after women have fought for over half a century for this.
Okay. Michelle, you've got final 30 seconds.
As an entrepreneur, I can tell you that $10 daycare wouldn't help me. And this is what I hear at the doors. I need flexibility, I need money in my pocket, and I need to be able to provide childcare for my kids that fits my schedule.
Okay, we're going to move on, and I promise we'll get a chance to explore this issue a little bit more for the other candidates. I want to roll into something that was mentioned, brought up, a very divisive topic right now, vaccine mandates and vaccine certification programs, also known as vaccine passports, are being rolled out across the country. They have proven to be very divisive, as I said, at least with a very vocal minority. Do we need such mandates and programs? And how do we balance the rights of people who cannot or are not willing to be vaccinated, or should we? Miriam, you're first.
Like everybody else, I am so over COVID. I am sick and tired of COVID. But COVID is not yet over. And with so many people having made so many sacrifices over the past 19 months, we're all reminded that our well-being is dependent on one another's behavior. So yes, we do need a vaccine mandate. Vaccines are the most effective way to finish the fight against the pandemic. And our children, our elders, our businesses, every single person in our community deserves to put the pandemic behind us and move on with life.
Thank you. Michelle?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, vaccines are effective and they're important, and I think they work. And I think it's important to have choice for people as well. I have a lot of family members who have chemotherapy who can't take this vaccine. So we need a streamlined system, and we support it fully for rapid tests to make sure that we're securing our borders. You know, I'm hearing at the doors people who did their due diligence and did what the Liberal government asked them to do, and they got their vaccines, and they got mixed vaccines, and now they can't go to their house in Florida. They're mad. They're upset. So we need a streamlined system that's making sure that we are protecting our borders and our people and keeping everyone safe.
Thank you, Michelle. Shantae?
I think the question should not be, do you support a vaccine mandate? It should be, do you support public health measures to protect the citizens in this riding? Vaccination is not your only tool to protect you against COVID, although it is highly effective and it is very much encouraged. It's also important to wash your hands, stay at home, cover your mouth, don't cough out, in public. I think that by practicing all of these, it will help us get over the public health crisis that we're having right now with the pandemic. But also we shouldn't be penalizing people or individuals who are unable to get the vaccine. And I think by mandating a vaccine passport, it'll put those individuals who are unable to get the vaccine in an awkward position where they're forced to, stay home as opposed to go out and live their daily lives.
Thank you, Shantae. Joy?
Thank you. Well, certainly a vaccine passport is a coordinated, efficient smart way to mitigate any confusion about vaccinations. One thing we know for certain is that that vaccinations are the best way to prevent spread of the Delta variant, which is much more virulent than the first 3 waves. We know when we knock on doors that parents and families are worried about a safe beginning to the school year. The best way to keep schools open, to keep businesses open, is to make sure that everyone who can possibly be vaccinated safely is vaccinated. So it's wonderful that all the leaders have come together with the same statement that it's absolutely important that everyone who can be vaccinated so that we can have a safe recovery economically in terms of businesses, schools, and all walks of life in our communities.
Thank you, Joy. Miriam, you want a 30-second rebuttal?
Well, not all leaders. So I just want to ask Ms. Frary for clarification. Are you suggesting that unlike what we've heard in the news, that you support mandatory vaccination?
We have the exact same policy that you do. So I think this is a really big wedge issue. I think it's how you say things to people. I think when you threaten people, they don't respond. But when you reach out to people, we've been very clear that we believe in vaccines and we think that they're the most effective way. But we also believe that people are able to make their own medical choices, and we recognize those people who can't get it. And as a result, we don't want to shame them. We want to offer solutions like rapid testing to protect the public.
Okay, so that's not
If
the
I may.
same thing,
Okay,
to be clear. That's not the same position as the Liberal Party of Canada.
Okay, Joy?
When it comes to vaccinations, just to respond, in this 4th wave, Jagmeet does believe that this can't be a partisan decision, and for that reason, he did go to all the party leaders, and they did agree that the message, the social message to get out to all constituents and all ridings is that all Canadians should be vaccinated, and there was an agreement on that piece. However, in practice, we are going to be seeing if that is indeed the case for all leaders.
Okay, thank you, Joy. We'll move along to the next question, also on COVID recovery. One of the unexpected challenges that many small businesses are experiencing as they open back up is finding qualified staff. What do you see as the main contributing factors to the situation? Is this something that should just be left to correct itself over time? Or can government do something to address the issue now, and should it? Michelle, this question is for you.
So can you repeat that one more time? Sorry.
Yep. The member writes, one of the unexpected challenges that many small businesses are experiencing as they open back up is finding qualified staff, businesses that were closed during COVID. What do you see as the main contributing factors to this situation? Is this something that will correct itself over time, or can government do something to address this situation now, and should it?
Yeah, so I think there's 2 prongs depending on what kind of workers we're looking for. Like when we're looking into the skilled trades in particular, we obviously want to really enhance that. We want to attract a lot more skilled trades workers. So obviously we're going to double the apprenticeship job creation tax credit for the next 3 years to help create more places for apprentices, as well invest $250 million over 2 years to create the job training fund. This is really great. But back to what I've said since the beginning, obviously these employers need some incentives as well to close the gap from the revenue they lost during the pandemic to get workers back in place. Wages and transactional fees are the #1 operating cost when we look at business operations. So what are we doing to help employers get wages where they can hire them? So we're going to subsidize up to 50% for new hires.
Thank you, Michelle. Shante.
Yes, so I think going back to what I said originally about a guaranteed livable income, that would definitely assist people who are struggling currently in the workforce, who are not able to make a livable wage that they need to sustain a normal life. This in conjunction with a transition to a clean, green economy, this would also help increase lots of jobs. One of the aspects of our party platform is to retrofit all buildings in Canada, not just homes or small businesses. This would help get more people into the green field, and it would also boost our local economy.
Thank you, Shante. Joy.
The NDP platform speaks to a hard cap on credit card merchant fees at a maximum of 1%. That will be helpful. We talked about pharmacare, but also we want to implement a one-time excess profit tax on 15% for large corporations. We need to ensure that families and small and medium-sized enterprises don't carry the burden of paying off the pandemic spending. It needs to come from larger corporations, and we need the ultra-wealthy to pay their fair share to support small and medium-sized businesses get off the ground again. Hiring bonuses is also something that Team Jagmeet and New Democrats feel would be very beneficial going forward for small and medium-sized businesses.
Thank you, Joy. Miriam.
Certainly, access to a skilled workforce was a challenge for employers before COVID, and COVID has only made it more difficult. $10 a day childcare is going to put more money in the pockets of families, up to $12,000 a year per child here in Peterborough-Kawartha, but also give women, parents, the choice to get back into the workforce. As far as skills training, our party has a plan, and we are implementing that plan to give people incentives to go get skilled up, and then additional incentives for them to set up shop in rural communities. So if you're going to school to become a dentist, a doctor, a pharmacist, a teacher, or an early learning and childcare worker, the government of Canada is going to give you debt relief on your student loans and offer you incentives to set up shop in smaller communities, in rural communities, so that we too have access to the full suite of services that folks in urban centers benefit from.
Thank you. Joy, 30 seconds.
If I may, just in terms of incentives that were mentioned, the incentive of 10 days of paid sick leave has been something that the Liberals have resisted. We know that as we go into a fourth wave of a pandemic, essential workers, those out in the workforce, need to be sure that they can be home if they do get ill and if their family gets ill. It's a conundrum as to why there is a Liberal resistance to that. New Democrats will bring that forward.
Miriam, 30 seconds.
Just a point of clarification that it was Conservative premiers who resisted it, and we championed sick leave every step of the way, as we have vaccination, as we have $10 a day childcare, as we have vaccine mandates, because it's the only way to get the economy back on track and finish the fight against the pandemic.
If I may, just prior to an election, many of those announcements were made, but not during first, second, and third waves of the pandemic when it was crucial.
Michelle, I don't know if this brings you in, the reference to the Conservative premiers, but would you like to? You're good? Okay. We'll go to the next question then. And Chanté, you referenced this a couple times, so let's see what everybody else thinks about this issue. Before the pandemic, the idea of a guaranteed basic income was being discussed in some circles. But during the pandemic and the implementation of government supports like CERB, the idea seemed to garner a lot more interest. It's the idea, of course, that everyone is entitled and receives a basic income level. There's many different ideas about how you would do that and if it's truly universal, but that's the basic idea, that people wouldn't fall below a basic income. What are your thoughts on a guaranteed basic income? Has the time come to implement it? What form should it take? And what are the benefits to the economy or risks to the economy? Chanté?
So that's a really good question. Like I've stated a few times already, the guaranteed livable income is something that will benefit many Canadians. As emergency benefits begin to wind down, the question is what will replace them? Instead of plugging the holes one by one, the solution is to create a comprehensive benefit, meaning the guaranteed livable income. We already do this for certain individuals in our community. We have the benefit for seniors as well as the early childhood benefit. So why can't we do this for all Canadians? We're all in the same fight together against the pandemic. We're all in the same boat when it comes to financial issues, whether we're struggling or excelling. It's important that we support the community. Poverty is very expensive, and the Canadian government spends over $20 billion in employment insurance and transfers to low-income families already. Poverty is also the largest social determinant of health, so it's important that we protect those individuals.
Thank you, Chanté. Joy, you're next.
Yes, we believe that the current system of welfare is not enough, and we believe that a guaranteed basic income is important too, but in conjunction with a job creation plan that makes sense. So we believe in 1 million good new jobs that are created in local economies because we've prioritized our carbon emissions targets and creating clean tech and a Green New Deal that has mechanisms in place and needs to be put into action swiftly because of lost time. Under the Liberal government, we're behind, and we need to move ahead and meet our targets according to Bill C-12. We will create good, clean, new jobs, and we will also create a priority for those jobs with a pandemic recovery.
Thank you, Joy. Miriam.
I'd say we've all been in the same storm, but some of us in leaky boats and some of us without any boats. And certainly the welfare system that we currently have, as someone who in our early days of being in Canada, we were on welfare, as helpful as it is, it can be better. In fact, it's one of the biggest disincentives to work when the welfare dollars are tied to health benefits without an actual comprehensive skills development strategy. The Liberal Party of Canada is going to move forward with support for those who are working full-time but are not able to make ends meet with the living wage supplement. We're doing a review of EI. Personally, so you know, I'm a strong advocate for a guaranteed income because I do believe that it can be a strong incentive to get people out of poverty and contributing to life meaningfully, but that's part of a comprehensive job strategy as well.
Michelle.
Yeah, I mean, I think it can work for sure, but I think the problem is you need your economy under control. So I think what would be amazing and what we would love to do is see more of our domestic resources used to increase our own income here. I mean, you look at some place like Norway where they're doing it effectively, but it's because they're using their own resources, right, to drive down their taxes and such. So I think we need to get to a place where we're relying more on our own resources to do this. And, you know, I just think it's important to recognize that it is absolutely imperative. I agree a lot with what Shanti is saying. You know, poverty is expensive, and I think, you know what, when you have to meet Maslow's basic hierarchy of needs. People need food and shelter 100%, but that all starts with the economy and creating jobs.
Thank you, Michelle. Miriam, 30 seconds.
Just a point of clarification for Ms. Ferreri. So you do support a guaranteed income?
I think it could work. It's not going to work right now in what we have. We need to change how we operate our country and our economy.
Joy, you got 30 seconds.
If I may, some of it does not seem that it has to be sequential. We need to do things in tandem and with collaboration of levels of government to make sure that we're creating new jobs, that we're retrofitting homes, that we're creating a template for a new economy, and that we need to do these other things in tandem. Otherwise, we will leave people behind. And we need to make sure that we're fighting for everyone and taking care of one another through this pandemic.
Thank you. We're going to move on to housing now. And the member asks, a vast majority of property owners saw a dramatic increase in their wealth over the last year and a half, thanks to great increases in the market value of their property. The other side of the coin, of course, is that people looking to get into the market are finding it very difficult. How does your party intend to support first-time home buyers across this country that are struggling to find housing and meet their needs? Do we have to be careful, also, that incentivizing first-time home buyers doesn't distort the market even further? Joy, I have you for the first.
Well, as I think of home buying, I think of how difficult it is for most families to be able to buy a home, especially in this pandemic landscape. When we think of home buyers, we think of young people generally, but most young people can't even find housing when they're in university or just trying to get their first job. We need to create new affordable housing projects that are earmarked for particular groups so that they can access and inclusively access affordable housing. In Peterborough-Kawartha, we have a huge housing crisis. So rather than thinking about corporations and businesses profiting in the billions with new housing projects, we need to be thinking of all the spectrum of our community and to have projects that make sense for vulnerable communities and Indigenous communities, urban and on reserves.
Thank you. Miriam.
Certainly, the Liberal Party has a plan to address the issue of supply, to build, support, renovate 1.4 million more homes, but to help young people, particularly those under 40, save up for that first down payment. Up to $40,000 tax-free is going to be a key step forward. We're going to help you save on your mortgage and save you up to $6,000 a year in monthly payments. And throughout the process of buying your first home, we're going to protect your rights so that there's no more blind bidding, so that inspections are part of the expectation of the process. I fundamentally believe that housing is a human right. Whether it's rental or home ownership, it's really hard to get your life on track if you don't have a place to call home. And this community has what it takes to build more homes, to support the most vulnerable, but also offer young people that dream of home ownership in a near future.
Thank you. Michelle?
Yeah, I mean, we've definitely not seen any houses increased in our region. We're in a crisis. Why? That'd be a question I would put out there. What's going on? I think supply and demand is a massive issue, and we, as a Conservative government, would get out of the way of people who can do their job and get more houses out there. I think, also for small business owners in particular, working with the BDC is going to be critical because, they will guarantee, we're going to open up that relationship to guarantee the mortgage. So as a small business owner, it's often very hard. You're often punished to get a mortgage. So we need to be opening that up as well. We need to be looking at not just affordable housing, but low-income housing and relying on the people in our community in Peterborough-Kawartha who know how to do that, and the social financing model that we have as well, that a lot of people are using here and we would support fully.
Well, Miriam, I've got you down for 30 seconds after we're finished the panel. Shante?
I agree. Housing is a human right. And I know, speaking from my own experience, I'm struggling. My partner and I are struggling to find housing that's affordable in a safe location, that's close to all of the amenities that we need. That's why it's really important that we transition to a green economy, because by doing so, we'll be able to invest in our local economy, bring in green jobs, our homes will be net zero. These are all things that the Green Party supports and is looking forward to implementing.
Thank you. Miriam, you have 30 seconds.
I think one of the reasons we are in a housing crunch was the federal government got out of the housing market. We came back into it, not just with the National Housing Strategy, but we're moving forward to make sure that the process of buying a home is more fair, more transparent. We're going to criminalize blind bidding. We're establishing a legal right to a home inspection, and we're banning foreign ownership for 2 years.
Michelle?
I just have a question about housing in Peterborough-Kawartha. I believe there were supposed to be 2,000 houses built by the beginning of August. I'm curious why that hasn't been done.
May I?
Yes, please.
We're on track to building units of housing. Since I've been your MP, we've helped support over 1,700. The City of Peterborough has a plan to move forward with more than 1,400 units of housing. They're stuck in some discussions around process. The minute that they're able to move forward, I'll be there as your member of parliament to see those units built.
Thank you. Keeping in the theme of housing, and you mentioned it in your remarks, but maybe possibly we could expand on this, should there be a prohibition or moratorium on foreign home ownership? Miriam, you're up first.
Absolutely, and we hear that from millennials, and we hear that from folks in urban communities and rural communities. We hear it from elders, and our plan will not pit millennials against boomers, rural against urban. We're going to support Canadians, particularly young folks, to buy that first home and addressing that demand and supply piece by banning foreign ownership. For the next 2 years, we're going to provide some relief in addition to the work we're doing to help people save for that down payment, $40,000 save for that down payment tax-free, in addition to the work that we're doing to save people on their monthly mortgage, we're going to ban foreign ownership for the next 2 years so that folks here in Canada can have the opportunities to access home ownership.
Thank you. Michelle, Conservatives position?
Yeah, for sure. We're going to ban foreign investors from buying homes here if they're not planning to move to Canada. We've seen it a ton here where people are coming in with no conditions, cash offers. It's just driving up the cost. But I'm just curious why the Liberal government hasn't done this as of yet.
Shante?
Yes, foreign investments are a really large problem in the housing market. Like my colleague, fellow candidates have mentioned, it's really important that we have more incentives for local homeowners, and by putting in place these practices, more people will have access to homes, including myself.
Thank you. Joy?
So Justin Trudeau, in contrast to some of the remarks, has fused to fix the capital gains tax loophole, even though it has a $1 billion price tag and 88% of it goes to the richest 1%. So as much as there's talk of closing loopholes and targeting the big money foreign investing house flippers, putting that into action seems to be not what is happening. We need to use capital gains loopholes and correct them. We need to increase the taxable amount of capital gains profits in the NDB perspective from 50% to 75%. If we do that, this will make a difference, and this will have an impact on some of this criminal activity.
And to be clear, we're talking about the principal residence exemption, is that?
That's right.
Okay. Miriam, 30 seconds.
Couple things. We're asking the largest banks and insurance companies to do a little more to share the dividends of their pandemic profits with Canadians who want to achieve the dream of becoming a homeowner. To my NDP colleague, I'll also say there are more than 1,700 families in our community who have a place to call home because of the Liberal government's investments.
Joy?
If I may, the problem with not having a wealth tax that is specific to the ultra wealthy, we're having people that are low wage earners and medium wage earners that are paying the same amount of tax. And this is a problem if we want to provide for the needs of a post-pandemic recovery community. We need to look at having the wealthy pay their fair share.
Okay, thank you. One final, Miriam?
I'd say that one of the first things we did was increase taxes for the wealthiest 1% and reduce them for middle-class earners. The NDP and the Conservatives voted against that.
Okay. Well, I think we'll jump into the next question, and I think we'll continue that theme, and we'll get everybody's opportunity to weigh in on this. The question is, for many people and businesses, voting often comes down to one word: tax. Mm-hmm. Will a government formed by this party or that party raise my taxes? Will it get value for the taxes I pay? And should our tax system be reformed? How will taxes change under government formed by your party? Michelle.
Yeah, of course. Small business owners know this well. We do not like the taxes, and we like to keep our hard-earned money, and that's exactly how Canada's Conservatives feel as well. You work for your money, we like to put it back into your pocket, so we will have lots of tax credits and incentives for you. As well, we will definitely not be putting capital gains on your principal residence.
Thank you. Shante?
In a green economy, everybody contributes their fair share to the collective well-being. This is why green policy focuses on reestablishing this fairness by closing loopholes that benefit only the wealthy, ending offshore tax dodging, and increasing the tax for large multinational corporations like banks, tech giants, and others who do not pay their fair share.
Thank you, Shante. Joy?
Just a correction. Capital gains on a secondary residence and the increase of that. I just wanted to clarify that. If I misheard, I have a slight hearing impairment. Thank you. I just wanted to say, in relation to tax, one tax we haven't mentioned that is so critical as we see subways in New York City being engulfed by water and wildfires sweeping across our country. If we don't take climate action now, we are not going to have a future for our children and our grandchildren. We've had Conservatives flip-flop on whether the climate climate crisis is even real, much less be certain about a carbon tax and a just transition to a clean economy. There's been a lot of back and forth. And also, rather than doing the right thing, both Liberals and Conservatives keep choosing to give big polluters a break, and people and our climate are paying the price. We need to have a sensible carbon pricing, and we need to make that happen in a way that we can retrofit and catch up with Denmark and Iceland and the Netherlands and Germany, who are light years ahead of us and started at the same time.
Thank you, Joy. Miriam.
An economy that works for everyone requires everyone to pay their fair share, and since 2015, we have made significant strides to make our tax system fairer, simpler, so that businesses and middle-class families are able to keep more of what they earn while asking the highest earners amongst us to pay their fair share. Since then, we've modernized the tax system to recognize the growing importance of digital tech giants and making sure that Canadian companies are able to compete on an equal basis with their competitors online. We've helped set a global minimum corporate tax. We've made sure Canada has the lowest combined small business tax rate in the G7. We've moved forward with a plan to lower credit card fees for small businesses, and we're going to continue to be there to support small businesses and, in turn, support workers, families, and communities who rely on them.
Thank you. Since this was brought up, we'll jump into to this, and that kind of goes with the theme of tax. All of your parties now support a price on carbon. Why is your platform, your price and process to tax or price carbon the preferred approach? Shantae, we'll start with you.
It's important to tax carbon because it is one of the things that cause the greenhouse effect. Our green policy definitely believes that by taxing the top polluters, it'll help make the taxes for the smaller people who are not emitting as many emissions easier and more feasible. The Conservatives do have a plan, they say, to set targets, but they don't have any targets actually listed in their plan. Ours, we do.
Thank you, Shantae. Joy.
Our carbon tax has a template in mind and mechanisms that are established. We are looking at the 17 United Nations Sustainability Goals. We know that the G7 countries, amongst the G7 countries, we are the furthest behind, and we have the greatest stretch to catch up. That's a fact, and the data is there to show it. And it's been 6 years of a Liberal government who has not brought that forward. We need coordination. We need responsible action, transparency, and mechanisms in place to make sure the targets are met. We have 1.5 of a target to make sure that we mitigate a catastrophic event. We know that's the case. Scientists have told us that. We need to make haste, and we need to have a carbon tax that will provide everything that's needed for a just transition to a green economy and thousands of new jobs in Canada.
Thank you, Joy. Miriam.
We're in the middle of a climate emergency. We don't have time to debate whether or not climate change is real. The Liberal Party of Canada, as a government, we put a price on pollution. Here in Ontario, we're giving the proceeds right back to Canadians, to Ontarians, and we're creating green jobs in the process. There's no way that we can grow the economy without protecting the environment. And I will also say this. Conservative premiers took us to court for 2 years over pricing pollution. The Supreme Court of Canada ruled that, of course, we were on the right side of history and within our jurisdiction to do so. We are offering the best climate plan, the best economic plan forward, and even Mr. Mulcair called our climate action plan absolutely marvelous.
Thank you, Miriam. Joy, you'll have an opportunity to respond after Michelle. Michelle.
Yeah, of course. So our carbon tax what I think caters to people is that it puts money back into your pocket as opposed to the government's pocket. So it's creating incentives to get people out to really care about the environment and the climate. The reality is this is not a national problem, this is a global problem. And the atmosphere doesn't have borders. And we need to be doing all that we can to ensure that people are getting what they need to be incentivized to help be a part of the solution. And we have a vast array of people here. You can't apply the same rules to somebody who's in rural Ontario or in our riding that you would in the urban area, right? So yeah, our carbon tax puts money back into the pockets of Canadians and allows them to use it for themselves.
Joy, you're next. 30 seconds.
Thank you. Mr. Trudeau's hypocrisy is quite staggering around climate emergency. We know that he approved a pipeline the next day that a climate emergency was declared. We don't approve new pipelines if we are serious about swift action against fossil fuel emissions and reducing our targets, or meeting our targets and reducing our emissions. We need to do something now. We need to create a climate bank, and we know that that's a plan for the NDP to fight the climate emergency instead of an infrastructure bank.
Thank you, Joy. Shante?
Yeah, I just wanted to challenge one thing that Ms. Ferrari stated in regards to their tax plan for carbon. Your plan states that the more you emit, the more you save. How does that fight climate change?
Okay, I'm going to jump to Michelle if you want to respond to that, and then Miriam.
Yeah, for sure. I don't personally think that that's what it goes. I think what we're saying is that we're incentivizing people to make better choices and to make better plans. So by doing that, I think the carbon tax is going back to the people. It's not on the backs of hardworking Canadians.
But the more you emit, the more you save. So you're just increasing greenhouse gases. That doesn't fight climate change at all.
Okay, I'm going to go to Miriam first, then Shante, if you want another 30 seconds, you can have it.
I agree with Ms. White on the clarification that she just sought. We're already giving the proceeds from the price on pollution back to households in our community, in our province. That work is already happening. The proceeds from the pipeline are going right back into green solutions so that we can move everyone forward. And the start of solving any problem is recognizing one exists. The Conservative Party of Canada has not settled on whether or not climate change is real. In fact, they voted against it being caused by human activity in the House of Commons just a few months ago.
Michelle, you were, again, the Conservative Party was referenced directly, so I can go back to you, and then we're going to go to Shante and Joy.
We absolutely believe it's real. End of story.
Shante?
I just want to go back to what Ms. Monsef just said about the pipeline. Buying a pipeline in the middle of climate disaster is not a smart plan. As well, it's like putting out a fire with gasoline. You can't solve the climate crisis by adding to the emissions.
Joy?
O'Toole's so-called plan won't make any difference. We don't believe that. And we need to eliminate fossil fuel subsidies once and for all, and undo the Liberals' decision to let big polluters off the hook. That will be our first step in the right direction in terms of climate action.
Okay, we're going to wrap up this question. Miriam, you've got 30 more seconds, and Michelle, if you want to jump in again, you can. Michelle, Miriam?
The Liberals are the only ones who believe that we can grow the economy and fight climate change at the same time. That in fact, it is the only way to move forward. My colleagues here would like to make a choice between a healthy environment and a growing economy. The Liberals are the only ones with a plan to fight climate change, create green jobs in the process, and ensure Canada is a leader in green tech and a clean economy.
Thank you. Michelle?
Yeah, I just want to say I'd like to know how you're going to do that. But on top of that, I think the other key component is to make sure that we are doing what we can to prevent China from being a sole source where we get a lot of our small business needs from. So we need to be adding those tariffs, and we're committed to doing that as well. They're a massive contributor, and they don't have any regulations. So we need to be part of that solution as well.
We have an ambitious 50-point plan to fight climate change and create green jobs to get us to net zero emissions by 2050, and I'm happy to share that plan with my colleague.
Okay. We're going to cut it off there. I know that we've got time, or we've got other debates where I'm sure this will come up again. So thank you for that round. We don't have much time left, so I'm going to move on to a couple questions that we got a lot of response in the subject area. The first one, especially from our businesses downtown, who are right on the front lines of the retail and dealing with customers. Peterborough is feeling the devastating effects of the opioid crisis. Gone are the days when Peterborough could make the claim that hard drug use and its impacts are somebody else's problem. Many business owners feel that downtown and businesses operating downtown are being negatively impacted by an increase in drug dealing, using, and people overdosing on the streets. There's a strong consensus that much more needs to be done, although there's hardly a consensus on what exactly should be done. The question is, does your party have a strategy to address the crisis, and what impact will the strategy have on our streets, our businesses, as well as the person suffering from addiction to opioids and other street drugs? And my first question, I believe we're going to Joyce, right?
Thank you. So when we see communities or individuals in pain and in suffering and experiencing challenges around addiction and mental health, we need to ask why, and we need to address the concerns without a formula, but with a one-to-one approach that is based in compassion and based in practice. We need mental health supports like we've never needed them before across this nation and in vulnerable communities. Those who were already struggling because of a lack of income in their homes and in their families, those who are poor, those who are struggling, those from marginalized communities and equity-seeking groups. We need to provide the supports and resources needed. And it's a wake-up call to us all. The pandemic has made it worse. We need to provide support. We need to rule out decriminalization. We need to declare a public health emergency. We need to end the stigmatization and expunge criminal records for personal things like personal possession. We need to deal.
Thank you, Joy. I guess I should have. I did say you could finish the sentence, and that was a fantastic.
We need to deal with our problems and in ways that have many approaches, and it needs to be an integrated, holistic approach.
Thank you. Miriam.
I live downtown. My campaign office is downtown. I chose to have my constituency office downtown. I see what's happening in our downtown. And let me just be clear, our downtown is incredible. It has every ingredient to continue to thrive, to contribute to our commercial tax base, to be a place where employers want to set up and people want to hang out and enjoy. But what we also see downtown is just the tip of the iceberg of people hurting in our community. Yes, the Liberal Party of Canada has a plan to move forward with investments to address opioids, addictions, and problematic substance use. We've put on the table a commitment to establish a permanent mental health fund so that organizations like CCRC and hospice and those who are offering mental health supports have that capacity to do more, particularly post-pandemic. We've got a commitment to add 1,200 counselors on campuses across the country, and I agree with my NDP colleague. The way forward is to address the issue with compassion, to focus on the evidence, and to work with the experts in our community.
Thank you. Michelle?
Yeah, I mean, this is obviously a huge component. 17 people are dying a day from opioid-related deaths, some of which are my own family. This is ridiculous. Downtown is the worst it's ever been, and it's under your watch. And so I would question you on what you're actually going to do. And I think mental health is critical in what we're going to do. And if these downtown businesses don't get the support they need to have people feeling safe, and if there's not somewhere for these people to go for recovery, not just harm reduction, we're not doing our job. The Conservative Party of Canada's recovery plan third pillar is mental health, and we will be bringing mental health here to help in money, $325 million. And that's what we're committed to do, and that's what I personally, Michelle Ferreri, am committed to doing to this community.
Thank you. Chanté?
I think it's important that we identify and call the opioid crisis what it is. It's a healthcare issue rather than a criminal one. The Greens support the approach that drug poisoning is a crisis and it's a national healthcare issue. It's not a criminal issue. We also believe that we should declare all drug poisonings a national health emergency. We're noticing more and more often that, it's not necessarily the drugs that are killing people, it's the fentanyl and what people are lacing them with. So it's important that we provide services in order for them to get well because they are sick. It's good to have a safe injection site. Yes, people will be monitored, but we need real support for these people and we need real rehabilitation centers for them as well.
Thank you, Chanté. Joy?
So I think that, it's interesting, appreciating that there's support, but Conservatives have spent years fighting to shut down our life-saving harm reduction services across Canada. So as much as in one corner that may be the case, we're concerned that the Conservative vision for Canada does not align with this, and this is something we must address. It is a public health emergency, to my previous speaker's point. It is, and we do need to decriminalize it. It is not a criminal affair. It is a public health emergency. We need to rise and support our most vulnerable in these communities.
Mary, 30-second rebuttal.
We put forward $5 billion in transfers to provinces for additional mental health supports. The Conservative Party of Canada voted against it. I supported funds more than $3 million to provide 12 people employment to offer wraparound supports, counseling, peer outreach in our community. The Conservative Party of Canada voted against that investment. The Safe Consumption site has received federal approval, but our MPP, Dave Smith, has yet to deliver on his end of the bargain. Safe consumption sites save lives, and we have the wraparound supports in place and the partners here in Peterborough to do more. We also need treatment options in this community, and if re-elected as your Member of Parliament, I'll continue to work with partners to deliver.
Thank you. Joy, you had your hand up before for a rebuttal. I think there was something you said. Do you want another 30 seconds?
That's okay.
You're good? Okay, thank you. We're getting close to the end here, guys, so there's just a couple more questions that I want to end off with. First, looking at your party's platforms, and you wouldn't know it today, but many commentators have opined that there doesn't appear to be a lot of daylight between your platforms as there once was. There are differences, of course, we're seeing that, but I would like to give you the opportunity. Part of, obviously, campaigning is to bring to the attention concerns in other parties' platforms. What are the differences that voters should be concerned about in the other parties' platforms that are here today? And we'll be starting off with Marion.
Thanks, Joe. I beg to differ. There's many items. There are many items that set the Liberal plan apart and aside from other parties. We're the only ones with a fully costed plan to finish the fight against the pandemic, to ensure that there is additional health supports, particularly for those in rural and remote communities. We're the only party offering $10 a day childcare with the actual team and expertise in place to move forward, to save parents up to $12,000 a year and to get women back into the workforce. And we are the only ones with an ambitious, incredible climate plan that's going to fight climate change, acknowledge the emergency we're in, and create good, clean jobs in the process. And as for me, I'm the only candidate here with a proven track record to get things done for our community. And just like this community was there for me and my family in our moment of need, my team and I were there for the residents of Peterborough-Kawartha over the pandemic, and it would be the honor of a lifetime to continue to be there for you throughout the recovery.
Thank you. Michelle.
Yeah, of course. I mean, that's definitely not the story that I hear at the doors. I think people's biggest question is, why was this election even called? There's just no need for it. $610 million, and, there may be a fully costed plan, but who's paying for that? And how, when we're at the largest debt we've ever been in our lives. We are under leadership of someone with a plan, military service, and a service mind with true intention to help. And so I think that's critical when you look at what we want to do. And our recovery plan has been fully available since the first day of the campaign for people to look at, and it's 160 pages long. And we want to support small businesses and get people back to work.
Okay, thank you. Shantae.
Yeah, I would disagree. I think there are a lot of differences within each of our party's platforms. The Liberals, they are choosing to fight climate change with a pipeline. The Conservatives deny that climate change is a real issue, and they are proving that with their taxation plan, which is basically the more you emit, the less you have to pay, which does not help fight climate change at all. The NDP, their strategy, it just follows basically what the Green Party has already laid out in regards to the retrofitting of all of the buildings in Canada, which again would help boost our economy by investing in green jobs and the green sector. And MP Monsef is correct. She has been a leader in many things. She's been a leader in not getting things done. She even admittedly said on TV that she's fought her own government for 6 years to get clean water to the Curve Lake Reserve. If it was a campaign promise by Mr. Trudeau, why did you have to fight so hard to get that done? There are children suffering, and I don't think that's right.
Thank you, Shantae. Joy.
Well, currently, I believe that the NDP has an approach to truth and reconciliation and promises that intend to be kept and rather than broken. We've had 6 years of a Liberal government where we've seen 13 of 94 truth and reconciliation calls to action be achieved. We have a lot to do, and we need to make up time. We have 31 First Nations reserves that are continually needing to do boil water advisories because a deadline of May has passed. We need to take action now, and it's nice to hear promises made just prior to an election and with a new budget being delivered, but we needed to see it, and it's time for a change. Peterborough-Kawartha is ready for that change. We also need to be sure that a government is going to protect its citizens. Team Jagmeet has a plan for a vaccine passport to keep Canadians safe as possible and protected from variants of concern.
Thank you. Miriam, 30 seconds.
I've helped bring in more than $500 million in federal investments to Peterborough-Kawartha, helped support and protect over 3,000 jobs. Colonialism, racism, misogyny is the reason why clean drinking water advisories exist. Our government's helped to lift over 100 of them. And this February, when Curve Lake First Nation receives the final designs of their treatment facility, there is federal funding set aside to help them get shovels in the ground and to move the community forward with their right to clean drinking water.
Shantae.
I think it's funny that children had to bring your government to court in order for you to get those promises made. The website says, like you've stated, that over 100 have been listed, but yet Curve Lake is still listed on that. So who's telling the lie, you today or the website?
Joy, then Miriam.
A question to candidate Monsef. When will the Liberal government agree to drop the lawsuits against First Nations children and families relating to their housing and the Indigenous crisis that has been on the landscape, and also the delayed response to missing and murdered Indigenous women and girls? There has been a very delayed response to that. Why and when will that change?
Miriam, 30 seconds.
So there were two pieces there from two separate candidates. May I have 30 seconds?
If you need it, sure.
On the point about the children, I don't think there is anything funny about that. And I'm going to continue to spend every single day that I have a voice to push for those kids, for their descendants, and for the 7 generations to come. We're not taking children to court. In fact, the work that's underway right now is to determine a more fair process for compensation. As for MMIWG, a file that I have worked very hard on, there's more than $2 billion in investments for culturally appropriate healing efforts, capacity for Indigenous women's organizations, economic security, as well as enhanced justice measures, which only the Liberal Party of Canada can move forward on in collaboration with Indigenous leaders and families themselves. There is much to do to turn around centuries of racism, colonialism, misogyny, and the Government of Canada, under the leadership of our Prime Minister, this community, through my advocacy as your Member of Parliament, have been able to move forward in ways no other government has before.
Thank you,
but the
Mary.
work is far from over, and I'm committed to continuing to push forward.
Okay, well, thank you very much, and that wraps up our round of questions. We had a great debate, and thank you for everybody for coming here today. We're going to move to our closing remarks now, and we're going to work in reverse order. So, Michelle, I'm going to start with you, and we'll work our way down. Michelle, you have 1 minute.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you to my candidates. This is an important election, and quite frankly, this part of it is not my favorite. I'd rather get to work. I'd rather be on the ground doing the work and making things happen instead of talking about it. And as a business owner, that's what it does. It takes relationships, it takes work. It's a matter of being there for your constituents and listening to them and taking their voice to Ottawa. And that's exactly what I plan to do if you elect me for your Member of Parliament for Peterborough-Kawartha on September 20th.
Thank you, Michelle. Miriam.
Thank you. I think you did a good job keeping us on track and keeping us on time, Shelby. Many thanks to the organizers and my fellow candidates. This is our first time actually meeting in person, and that's a gift and something to not be taken for granted. I think our community and Canadians deserve a choice about what happens as we finish the fight against the pandemic. Do we move forward with $10 a day childcare? Do we put the pandemic behind us? Do we address the climate emergency we're in and create jobs in the process? Or do we move backward and undo the sacrifices that so many have made during the past 19 months? I've delivered for you, Peterborough-Kawartha. You gave me a chance to start a new life in this community when we escaped the Taliban, and I'm back asking for your trust so that I can continue to fight for you. There is a lot at stake this election, and on September 20th, I ask you to put an X next to my name so that I can continue to get things done for you.
Thank you. Joy.
Well, it's been a time of listening to one another today, and if we could collect some of the nuggets that were shared here and work together like governments need to on all levels, municipally, provincially, federally, to give our constituents and our communities hope, we'd be doing a very good thing. And I think we have a beginning at doing that. But we need to make sure that we're making the choices in governance that make sense, that have a very outlined and specific plan for how to get to the goals and to meet the targets that must be met. I think that's the lesson in these last 6 years, is that there have been goals set and promises made and targets set. But we need to make sure that as we go forward, that we have a government that is committed to making that happen. We want a government fighting for people. I hope you'll vote for me as your federal New Democrat so I can bring your voice to Ottawa.
Thank you, Joy. Shantae, final word to you.
I want to thank the organizers for putting together this forum for all of the candidates. By now, you've probably realized I'm a Black woman with the last name White running for the Greens. I'm the improbable candidate, but Canada is an improbable country. And if you believe that you should vote with your hopes and not your fears, then I'm asking you to vote for me. Vote Green. If you believe we should not let fear-mongering give way to hope-mongering, then vote Green. One senior in this riding actually told me that when they die, they're leaving their home to their daughter and her husband for a better world for their grandchildren by voting Green in this election. I couldn't think of a better legacy. Because if we don't confront this existential threat head-on, it's the children and the grandchildren who will be the biggest losers. Let's listen to the better angels of our nature and do the right thing when it comes to Indigenous nations and First Nations Canadians. Let's do the right thing and not hold an election when so many new Canadians are stuck behind a stone wall of the Taliban-controlled Afghanistan. It means we have to be bold enough to admit to ourselves that we might not have a snowballed chance of winning an election, but hopeful that we can make a difference in our country and our community. Thank you.
Thank you. And I would like to take this opportunity to give a special thank you to the Peterborough Curling Club for providing the facilities today. And I would like to special thanks to RMS and Events, who helped organize this and is providing the streaming services today. And thank you to Kojiko and everybody watching, listening, and streaming at home. Big thank you, but most importantly, I'd like to thank these 5 candidates here. You should all be commended for participating in the democratic process in such a direct and personal way. So I don't know how much we can get. We do have a bit of a studio audience, but if we could just get... For further information on the parties' platforms and the candidates themselves, you can visit their web pages. Everybody is on social media as well. Remember, Election Day is September 20th. For information on polling stations, times, advanced polling, mail-in ballots, please visit Elections Canada website, elections.ca. Thank you, and goodbye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Congratulations, Polly.